hopefully if we're successful, which we feel we will be, obviously optimistic working with the Teck team, not just on the exploration side, but eventually, on the project development side. That's a real strength they bring. They're a tier 1 mining company globally in copper. They're a big name, and in Canada, they're one of the last major Canadian companies standing. So we're very fortunate to be working with them.
Welcome to those tuning in to the Assay TV. We're delighted to be joined by Dave Peck, VP of Exploration and Business Development for Metals Corp, a company focused on strategic critical metals exploration and development in southeastern Manitoba. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much, Katie. Good to be here.
Just for those unfamiliar viewers, can you introduce Grid Metals to us and, of course, its flagship projects?
Yeah, Grid's a junior explorer listed on TSX and Venture Exchange in Toronto. Been active in Manitoba and Ontario in exploration since the early 2000s, and really focused on southeast Manitoba right now, where we can see a path towards developing a new critical metals production hub. So we're kind of got a foot in both worlds: rare metal pegmatites and conventional magmatic copper nickel PGE deposits.
Excellent. Let's jump right into your news flow, because Grid's been especially busy over the last few months. So back in October, you outlined a 4-kilometre copper corridor at the Copper Nickel Project, which then has led to the commencement of a maiden drill program. So can you get into that for us?
Yeah, we've finished actually 25 holes, but we've only put out results for 6. The labs are always a little bit behind us, so and it's Christmas time, so we'll have some new results in January. They're looking pretty good too, but the first 6 were positive, and it did what we were hoping. It's kind of convinced us that we're on the right track to something, with size potential. So we're looking at the first 6 holes that we put out the release a couple of weeks ago now. And it's tens of meters of disseminated sulfide mineralization, are really targeting sort of 1+% copper equivalent grade. So this is dominantly copper, but there's also good credits from nickel and some from palladium, platinum, and gold as well. So that those were good results, in the range of 20 to 40 meters wide mineralized zone, fairly steeply dipping. It looks like it's got continuity along strike and at depth. And we found it in 2 different areas, about 500 meters apart. So we're starting to see what the signature is in terms of geophysics of this mineralization, and we're pretty confident it's going to continue to the north. And we actually did complete a few holes before we just shut down for Christmas in an area called the Acme Trend, which is about 1.5 kilometers north of the area we had announced the results for. So that's further to the north, and stay tuned. So we'll have some hopefully good results for people to look at in January.
You're obviously waiting for those results. So do you have any idea what drilling is actually next in the pipeline for or are you just waiting for those assays to come out first? You mentioned to the north.
Yeah, sorry, Katie. We do have lots of targets lined up in the queue. We kind of had 2 prongs for this initial drill program at Eagle. So it's Eagle target area, that 4-kilometer trend you mentioned is the Eagle gabbro. It's part of a 20-kilometer long complex that we call Mayville Eagle. And on the very west end, we have our Mayville deposit, which was drilled off in around the 2007 to 2011. And that resource was updated earlier this year, Micon International. That's on our website, the link to that report. Updated resource estimate of 32 million tons. Getting close to 1% copper equivalent in the higher grade parts of that resource. So that is the style we're looking for. We figure if we can double up on that by adding more tons in the Eagle area, then we're looking at a 60 to 70 million ton project, which could have a 15-year life of mine at a pretty healthy 5 million ton a year mining rate. That's kind of what we're looking for at Mayville. So we do have a lot of massive sulfide targets as well. So it's not just this kind of open pit, relatively lower grade, but pit grade resource that we've been talking about at Eagle and Mayville, we have a number of high grade massive sulfide targets, and those are going to be featured in the new year. So while we may continue on the drilling at the disseminated sort of targets like Acme and New Manitoba to the south, these high-grade massive sulfide targets along really obvious structures that have never been drilled before will be featured in the new campaign in the first quarter of next year.
Exciting 2025 coming up then.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on over to your Makwa nickel project. So huge news for Grid. You recently signed an agreement with Teck Resources, which congrats for that, to explore and develop the project. Can you talk us through the agreement and what it means for Grid?
It means a lot in not just the financing, but the technical support we'll get from Teck, and hopefully if we're successful, which we feel we will be, obviously optimistic working with the Teck team, not just on the exploration side, but eventually, on the project development side. That's a real strength they bring. They're a tier 1 mining company globally in copper. They're a big name, and in Canada, they're one of the last major Canadian companies standing. So we're very fortunate to be working with them. They understand Canada. They understand the jurisdictions. I think we helped them a lot in Manitoba, where they haven't been particularly active in the past. And it was a sign of the quality of the project, I think, that brought them in. So just in a nutshell, they've got about 6 years to spend around 16 million Canadian in exploration expenditures, which is something that we dreamed about having for Makwa, but didn't see a path forward in this current market. It's pretty challenging for juniors, as you know, right now. But luckily, they're definitely keen on working with us and trying to find this sort of transformational tier 1 magmatic high-grade massive sulfide. So that 16 million is all going into exploration. And there's a little bit of gravy for Grid in terms of some cash payments that come with this deal as well. There's really 2 stages. They can earn initial 51% interest, and then they can go up to 70% if they spend the full 16 mil. So we got 6 years. That's about the right time frame to make a discovery. It's not an area we don't know. This is our backyard. We've been active here for decades. We've got the data all well organized. We know where we would go right now, but we're getting a brand new series of geophysical surveys done in January, and that's going to really be the deciding factor on where the initial drilling happens. So we'll be working closely with the Teck team. We'll have a technical committee. I'm a sort of experienced global nickel guy myself, so working with their nickel group, we speak the same language. We know what a deposit looks like, and we know how hard it is to make these discoveries, but we're in a really good position.
Well, my next question was obviously how well financed is Grid as we move to 2025, but pretty well financed it seems. So it doesn't even bear thinking about, I guess.
Yeah, we actually have a pretty large portfolio of projects now because of the markets. We're just kind of bringing them along, keeping them alive. A lot of the assets in northern Manitoba are nickel assets, and we think Teck's sort of acknowledging we kind of know what we're talking about for nickel, so maybe we can get some eyes on those projects as well. They're more green fields and more remote, but really good pedigree. And then we've got a couple of projects in Ontario, but southeast Manitoba is where we're going to make or break the company. And I think with Teck support, that's a key part of the financing. There's other things we're looking at doing next year in terms of financing that are non-dilutive, but we probably will need to raise a little bit of flow through, and maybe we can get some institutional support for that too, with some good new drill results from Mayville area, Eagle. Yeah, but Teck's key for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, as we round up this interview, our investors quite like to highlight some major milestones. You have loads coming up in 2025, but what are the key aspects you want them to look out for?
Yeah, Q1 would be 2 or 3 announcements on the new drilling results at Eagle. That'll trickle into April and perhaps even May. Depends on the winter. If we get a good cold winter, we may drill longer than we kind of expected. We should have some initial plans from the geophysical surveys at Makwa with Teck team in terms of, well, this is, you know, the 7 or 8 top targets, and we're going to do some more groundwork on those. So you get a bit of a feel for what the drill program will look like at Makwa with Teck sometime in the second quarter, I would expect. And then into the sort of fall period, we'd be announcing some drill results from the Teck partnership. So that'd be the first results for drilling for that. And then we're always looking at other ways of financing the company and also keeping some of these other projects going. So, you know, we've got royalty sales. We've been in discussions about some off takes. There's other lines of financing that are non-dilutive. And that's really first prize for us as management team at Grid.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you today, and thank you for sharing some of Grid's news with us. I can't wait to hear more in 2025.
Thank you, Katie, and happy holidays.